I'm really grateful to have this session to present on the work that we are currently working on over the past few years regarding how to empower African languages really through the idea of natural language processing and addressing the data scarcity for us to drive innovation. So I'll immediately dive into the topic. So what is natural language processing? This is really a technology where the machines have the ability to process and analyze large volumes of text for particular tasks, okay? Think about text summarization, where you move from a larger text to a smaller summary of the text, or question answering, where you ask a question and you get an answer, or speech recognition, or translation. So all these are part of this wider natural language processing realm, okay? So what is really the challenge? Now, there's one Paso Hill in 1992 who said that by the year 2100, then the linguistic diversity of the world will be lost, in that most of the languages will really be obsolete as people are speaking predominantly English or any other larger languages, yeah? So as you can see, if you look at what he has said, it is actually coming to pass in that the more educated people are becoming, the less they're speaking their native languages, particularly when it comes to the global South, okay? And you can also see this reflecting in tools that are supported by natural language processing. So if you look at the left side of this, you find that NLP solutions, okay, they support predominantly what we call larger not in terms of population, but in terms of people who are speaking them, okay? So like, for instance, if you look at English, 7% of NLP tools support English. Yet when you look at the low resource languages, only 6% of the tools support. But in terms of population, you find that this 6%, the people who speak those languages are actually the majority, over 3 billion people, okay? And the people actually speak the languages that are mostly supported are actually 10% of the overall world population. So with this, it aligns with what Hela said, in that even NLP tools are propagating the idea of making other languages become extinct because actually tools are not there to support those particular languages. If you dig deeper and you think about large language models or language models in particular, you find that most of them also just support these global north kind of languages, yeah? And very few of them support African languages. And from the world list of languages, less than 0.01% of the world languages are supported by natural language processing tools. So what is the real reason? What is the issue behind? So we know that data is crucial. If you're to build a translation system, you need to have data of the languages that are supposed to translate it. If you're to build a speech system, you need the language data. So data is crucial to drive natural language processing. So if data is crucial, so it means that what is the issue as to why these languages do not have data that are supposed to feed the tool development through natural language processing? If you look at Africa, Africa has over 2,000 languages. And if you look at Kenya, Kenya has over 50 languages, divided into 3 main: Nilotic, Bantu, and Cushitic. But if you look at the richness of the language when it comes to data availability, data here, I mean digital data, you find that only like one language in Africa, think about Afrikaans or maybe Swahili, has enough web presence to build NLP tools. The rest of the languages, they're actually very minimal digital content in those languages to be able to use those content to build natural language processing tools. So when it comes to the richness of the language in terms of data, African continent is really not rich at all. We are the left behinds or the scrapping bys that don't have languages, data to support NLP tools. So what is the issue? Okay. Is the diversity the problem? Is it because we have so many African languages, that's why we don't have tools for them? Okay. We know that there are different language groups across different regions in Africa. There are different language groups in the north, in the south, in the west, and in the east. In the east, like in Kenya, we have mostly Kushite, Nilote, and Bantu languages. All of them have different orthographic variations. We do a lot of code mixing because of the national languages. There are different tone markers that are required and different levels of speaking. And maybe they're not properly documented, I would say, okay? That is why we're not having this particular data, okay? So little to no documentation. We have many regional dialects. And sadly enough, most African countries do not have the native languages as a national language. They'll either have English or French or Portuguese, the colonial language, okay? And sadly, educated Africans tend not to be able to speak and write the indigenous languages. So that means we are not natural generators of language data that can be used. And that is why we ended up building the Kenyan language datasets, okay? So this backdrop in mind, so we found out that the only way we're able to move forward as a community, to have tools to support our native languages, is to be able to actively engage the community to collect this crucial data that is required to build NLP tools. Unfortunately, we have to go to collect it. Why? We are not natural generators. We do not blog in native languages. We do not tweet in native languages. We do not write books in native languages. So that means there is not enough digital content around just to go and scrap on the web, for instance. Yeah, we really have to go to the community. And if you have to get the regional language where how it is spoken, then you have to go even deeper to the community, not even in the cities. Okay. So in the Kencorpus project, it has been almost 5-year project now. And over the years, we have built different data sets. So I'll go through them one by one. So the first set is just, can we be able to find any text data or any speech data in the Kenyan languages? So here we embarked on going to the community and asking them to write stories, okay, in native languages. And we just record this and transcribe them and have them in digital form. So yeah, for several languages so far, Kiswahili, Dholuo, Maasai, Kikuyu, okay? These are just texts, no annotation, no nothing. They're just speech and text in the different languages. Already, this is a one step forward to digitize the content. Now, once we had this text, which applications do we look at to begin? Because NLP is wide. There are many, many applications can build NLP. So when you look at the needs and the potential use cases of the community, there were 3 main tasks that came into being. One is translation. Most people want to be able to translate from language A to language B, or from a global north language to our global south, maybe from English to Dholuo, for instance, or across Dholuo to Kalenjin, okay? So for this, we need to collect what is called parallel copy, where the same sentence in language A is also the same sentence in language B, and they are aligned. So for this, we have quite a number of data for different Kenyan languages that have been aligned and collected. Part of them from the unlabeled text from number 1, but also part of the completely new texts. Okay, so now we have been able to train a fast machine translation system that we have that is able to translate from the Luo to Kalenjin to Kiswahili and English. It's a multilingual. Okay, so we have Swahili as our anchor. So we make sure that any single language has data translated to Kiswahili and not focus so much on English. It's either the Luo Kiswahili, Kalenjin Kiswahili, Maasai Kiswahili, in that particular sense. Okay, so those are enabling us to build machine translation tools. Think about somebody want to ask ChatGPT a question in the Luo. That means they can ask in the Luo, we translate it, send ChatGPT in English and bring it back in English and then translate it back to what? To the Luo as one particular component. The third tasks that we thought about were, there are some tasks called fundamental NLP tasks, things that are important in the pipeline of building NLP system, like part of speech tagging, for instance, okay? So for select languages, we have linguists who are working on, for the different sentences, can we annotate the data with the relevant part of speech? Such kind of things can be used, think about Grammarly, okay? Behind the scenes, there's a part of speech that is looking at the grammar, okay? Or spell checkers or grammar checkers, yeah? Those are things that enable language learning. They look like very mundane tasks, but they are the backbone of language learning and the backbone of language correction tools, for instance. So it's a very time-intensive and also very linguistic tasks to be able to have this particular data sets to be developed, okay? In the third realm of data sets that you've developed, we ask ourselves, what are other things that can be used with the data, for instance? So for instance, think about question answering. Somebody might want to be able to ask a question, okay? Then how do we train models to understand how are questions asked in our different languages? Or think about, you want to be able to pick out hate speech or misinformation or code switching or emotion detection. So for this, predominantly I worked on Swahili, looking at different aspects of the language, okay? How is misinformation spread in Swahili? If we have code switching, okay, how does that work in Swahili? How do people express emotion in Swahili? Okay, these are also important tasks that feed into development of different NLP tools. Now, in the last or the fifth category, we have what is called the speech corpora. This data set is what is required to train automatic speech recognition system, such that it is nowadays the norm. When you are speaking in a meeting online, we have automatic transcribers that transcribe for us in English and create summary of the notes. Is this possible in Swahili? Is this possible in Kikuyu or any other African language? It is not, okay? So how do we build systems that are able to listen to someone speak in the native language and transcribe it correctly in the native language? So for this, we are targeting around 3,000 hours of voice across the 5 languages, where we go out to the communities and we ask themselves, record yourselves talking about topic A or topic B. Record yourselves for 30 seconds, for 40 seconds, answering a question. And then we hire transcribers who go out and listen to the recording and type or transcribe. So these two, look, we are developing automatic transcription systems for the different language, which has many use cases, for instance, that can be able to think about across different tasks, okay? So as if we look at them, we are only scratching the surface. There are so many other tools. What of data to train LLMs, okay? How do we build upon those kinds of systems? So there are still so many varieties of data sets that we need to collect. So we are still in this process of developing the Kencorpus into a larger data sets to support different kinds of NLP development within the Kenyan ecosystem. So what we have come up to learn is community engagement is key. We really have to engage our community leaders, who I mean people like the chief, the local elders, who help us mobilize language speakers and give them that credibility of the project for them to come on board and record themselves, okay? Local primary schools and local secondary schools, where we have teachers, where we have church leaders, who help us mobilize the community. We also have the linguists from the universities and teachers who help with verification of texts, who help in transcription, who help in just annotations, okay? We're also working with media houses. So there are some of them who are willing to give us their texts, like their news recordings, for instance, and even the county government. How do we have also involved them to help us in mobilization. So you see, it's a whole community effort to go out and collect this data to be able to develop the relevant corpus. So what we have learned is with the community approach, you have to target the data collection. You cannot just go haphazardly. Like what we've done, are we collecting translations or speech systems or head speech kind of system? It's really targeted. And we focused on those two, majorly translation and speech, because of the needs that came from the communities. The one translation systems, the one transcription systems. So we designed for the users and the language owners, if I may say that, okay? And also we understand the diversity of the data. So for instance, we know that there are different dialects of Swahili. So the coastal, the urban regions, the other country regions, how do we capture all these data sets as Swahili? We know there are different language dialects across. So we want to avoid a majority language approach and really focus on understanding how the community speaks that particular language, because we don't want to ignore this particular aspect of how do they speak their corresponding languages. We also learned that it is important to have continuous community engagement. It doesn't end. It's always a continuous engagement, because we don't need like 2 people. We need like thousands of people, 3,000, 4,000 people to record. You cannot just, find them on the streets. You have to have continuous engagement. Then how do we incentivize data producers? Data producers are like the language owners. How do we enable them to naturally want to produce the language, okay? And how do we manage the expectations so that they don't know that maybe they'll be paid, $1 million to collect this language? There's a kind of a balance between incentivizing the community to want to collect this language and the long-term benefits of the community. How will they gain? Even radio stations, how will they gain in the end if they collaborate with us? Schools and the community leaders, how will they gain as a community in the end when they collect and come and work data collection. This is an ongoing discussion on really what is the long-term benefit of being part of this initiative of collecting data to support NLP tasks. I'll stop there. So this work has been supported over the years. We have Lacuna Funds, Gates Foundation. We work with different universities, Maseno, University of Nairobi, African Nazarene, USIU, and we have many, many, many language research assistants and resource persons who are in the field. Think about in Kalenjin, in the field in Somaliland, in the field who are helping us to mobilize the community and to be able to work. Now, I've shared some links, I think, to be able to see them on the different data locations where you can find our data. And I've also shared some citations over the years that we have publications that we've been able to develop that talk about different aspects of the work that we'll be able to do in the particular project. So thank you so much for your time.